Bonjour classe, bienvenue dans la classe de français 2. Passé composé time.
Passé, passé, passé composé. Avoir être participer. J'ai tout ce qu'il faut pour exprimer. Tous les verbes passé composé. Tous les verbes passé composé.
Et voilà, tous les verbes au passé composé aujourd'hui en classe. And when I say tous les verbes, I mean tous les verbes. Because up until this point, I'm just going to close this guy out. There we go. Up until this point, we have been doing mostly regular verbs in the passé composé, ER, IR, and RE verbs. And that's a lot. We know how to do those. We know that when we want to say something in the past tense, we start with avoir, and we conjugate it, so j'ai, for example, and then we use the participe passé, the past participle, so j'ai rangé ma chambre, I cleaned my room. J'ai fini mes devoirs, I finished my homework. J'ai vendu mon vélo, I sold my bike. We use the past participle, the E with the accent aigu, the letter I, or the letter U at the end of the verb for the past tense, always with avoir conjugated. So it's j'ai rangé, tu as rangé, il a, nous avons, vous avez rangé, always starting with avoir. Être is we're still putting that in the back burner. We're going to get to être in a week or so. But for now, today's lesson and this week's lesson is more than just what we've been doing. We're going to add in some irregular but very commonly used verbs. So you were probably thinking, Madame, there are some verbs missing from our list of vocabulary. For example, how do I say that I was somewhere? How do I say that I did something or that I saw something in the passé composé? Well, those verbs, my friends, are all irregular, and we're going to learn them today. Let's take a look. Class, if you have your textbook with you, you can follow along by looking at page 123, and here is where you find the past participles of these irregular verbs. If you want to say I had something, you say j'ai eu. The past participle of avoir is eu. It's a teeny tiny little past participle. Notice for these, we're not necessarily changing the endings like we did with our regular ER and IR and RE verbs. No, we're changing the whole thing. So these are some past participles that you pretty much have to memorize. But that's why we're learning it in class, and that's why I made this YouTube video, so you can watch it over and over and over again until you get them memorized. Let's work on that. J'ai eu, tu as eu, il a eu, elle a eu. Nous avons eu, vous avez eu. That one's fun to say. Ils ont eu, elles ont eu. And this is a good nasal French sound, eu. It's like you're saying E on the inside of your mouth, but you're making your mouth in the shape of an U. U. Practice that nasal sound. And we'll practice in class as well. Okay, here's être. How do you say I was? Like, I was at the movies last weekend, or I was at a friend's house. Here it is, class. J'ai été. Pay special attention to this past participle because the temptation is to ignore those accents and people say et, j'ai et. No, there are two accent aigu. Class, we learned from our past participles that end with the accent aigu that this makes an A sound. So what happens if you put two of them in the same word? Été, été. And you might recognize this past participle. It's the same as the word for summer. How do French people tell it apart? It's based on the context. How are you using it? If you say j'ai été, that is definitely the passé composé because you have avoir first. So it won't get confused because of the way it gets used in a sentence. J'ai été, I was. Tu as été, you were. Il a été, Elle a été, he or she was. Nous avons été, vous avez été. Ils ont été, elles ont été. Elles ont été. Practice saying that. All right, let's do a few more. Continuing on page 123 in your textbook, we get to the verb faire. This is super important because we use this all the time, like to take a walk, to do the dishes, to do your homework. That's the verb faire, to do. So if you want to say I did yesterday, you say j'ai fait. Tu as fait. Il a fait. Elle a fait. Nous avons fait. Vous avez fait. Ils ont fait. Elles ont fait. Voila. That's how you use faire in the passé composé. Now these next two are almost the same because you'll see here's the word mettre. Mettre means to put or to place or like to put something on, like I put on a jacket or I put on a hat. Promettre is mettre gone pro. It's the word mettre and it has pro in front of it, but it doesn't mean to put or to place. It means to promise. Oh, do you see that? When you look at the past participle, see how that looks like the word promise? They both have almost the same past participle. J'ai mis, j'ai promis. Tu as mis, tu as promis. You promised. Il a mis, il a promis. And of course, elle a mis, elle a promis. I just didn't have room to type it all out. Nous avons mis, nous avons promis. Vous avez mis, vous avez promis. Ils ont mis, elles ont mis. Ils ont promis, elles ont promis. Voilà. Super bien, class. Here is the verb prendre. We just learned prendre back in lesson 5. If you remember, it means to take. So when we use prendre in the passé composé, it means I took. Like I took the bus, or I took the train, or I took something to eat. Prendre can be used that way too, like I had something for lunch. And then you'll see comprendre. It's basically the same verb, it just has a little prefix there. Comprendre means to understand, like to comprehend. Do you understand? Tu as compris? And there's the past participle, j'ai pris or j'ai compris. This can be tricky and people make this mistake all the time. So if you make this mistake, don't feel bad. Just grow from there and move on and learn the right way to do prendre because we look at it at first glance and we say, oh, it's just a regular RE verb, prendu, right? No prendu. No prendu. I shouldn't even repeat that word. I don't want you to get that stuck in your head. It's j'ai pris. It's an irregular verb. It does its own thing. Tu as pris. Tu as compris. Il a pris. Il a compris. Voilà. And on the plural side, nous avons pris. Nous avons compris. Vous avez pris. Vous avez compris. Ils ont pris. Ils ont compris. Voilà. Tu as compris? Oui, madame, j'ai compris. Parfait. Class, there's one more irregular verb for us to learn this time, and it is the verb voir. If you remember voir from lesson 5, I think it was, it means to see. So what if you saw something really cool over the weekend? Now you can talk about it. Maybe you saw someone you hadn't seen in a long time. Maybe you saw like an eagle swoop down and scoop something up from the ground. You saw a cool thing. You can say it in French. J'ai vu. Look at that. Voir doesn't work like finir or other regular IR verbs. It's not regular. So you can't just drop the ending. You just have to change it to vu. J'ai vu. Tu as vu. Again, it's just like avoir. J'ai eu, it's that nasal sound, so work on saying that. Il a vu. Elle a vu. Nous avons vu. Vous avez vu. Ils ont vu. Déjà vu. Have we done this before? That expression déjà vu literally means already seen. Like, I've already seen that before. I get this weird feeling that this has happened before. Déjà vu. That's where that comes from. Now we're also this week going to learn how to conjugate voir in the present tense. Not to throw you off too much, but if you want to say I see what you're saying, it's je vois, tu vois. Ooh, I'm going to run out of room. Can I fit it in? Yes, il voit. It is nous voyons, vous voyez, and then il voit. That's the present tense, like I see or I am seeing currently. So it's not too tricky. Voir, 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 voyons, voyez. This is a shoe verb. If I circle, really messy, messy shoe, but you remember from previous classes, it's because it starts with the same stem, but nous and vous, the stem changes. That I changes to Y. But otherwise, the endings are the same, ONS, EZ, ENT. So present tense of voir isn't too tricky, so we're sticking it in with this lesson as well. All right, mes amis, that is your past tense. Later this week in class for Workbook Wednesday, I'm just skipping ahead here. Oh, maybe I went too far. There is a workbook page that we're going to do in class, so we'll talk about it then, but you'll be using these irregular verbs in the passé composé and a little bit with voir in the present tense. So for now, go back, watch this video again as many times as you need to learn and memorize your irregular past participles. We're getting so good at the passé composé. Super bien. And I can't wait to see you guys all in class so we can sing the song together once again. Merci classe, and I'll see you later. À bientôt. Au revoir.
C'est une forme ensemble. Voilà, ça y est.
C'est facile à formuler le passé composé.
Passé, passé, passé composé. Avoir et le passé passé. C'est tout ce qu'il faut pour exprimer. Tous les mots passé composé. Tous les mots passé composé.